April 2026. The silence has been broken by a sound that defies every law of physics. A sound that doesn't just hit your ears, it vibrates in your very soul. Are these the final pages of the book of Revelation unfolding before our eyes? Or are you still choosing to stay blind to the truth while God Himself knocks on your door through catastrophes that no man can explain? The atmosphere above us, which we have always treated as a passive shield of nitrogen and oxygen, has suddenly transformed into a celestial stage of terrifying proportions. In the early hours of this morning, across the vast deserts of Phoenix, Arizona, and stretching deep into the heart of the American Midwest, millions of people were violently jolted awake. It wasn't the sound of an earthquake or the roar of a jet engine. Instead, a deep, metallic resonance filled the sky, a sound so heavy and rhythmic that witnesses described it as the sky itself groaning under an invisible weight. This was the sound of the legendary sky trumpets, but on a scale never before recorded in human history. This wasn't a localized hum or a fleeting echo. It was a sustained 120 decibel roar that bypassed the ears and rattled the rib cages of every living soul within a 500-mile radius. For hours, the sound persisted, fluctuating in pitch with a terrifying, symphonic precision, as if a cosmic conductor were signaling the start of a final movement. People ran into the streets, looking for the source, expecting to see massive industrial machinery or military aircraft. But the horizon was empty. There was only the sound, a haunting metallic trumpet blast that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space itself. As the echoes of these trumpets paralyzed the Southwest, a different kind of supernatural display was manifesting in the frozen fields of Iowa. A massive, historic blizzard was already punishing the region. But as the sun began to set, the blizzard did something impossible. Instead of the usual gray and white wall of snow, the entire sky ignited into a surreal palette of deep neon pink and bruised purple. This wasn't a standard sunset or a common optical illusion. The colors were thick, opaque, and pulsated in direct synchronization with the trumpet sounds heard 1,000 miles away. Even more chilling were the dancing lights, pillars of white and gold light that began to swirl through the falling snow. These were not the northern lights. The aurora borealis does not behave with this kind of intent. These lights moved with a rhythmic intelligence, weaving through the clouds in patterns that resembled ancient symbols of worship. They didn't just flicker, they glowed with a blinding intensity that turned the midnight blizzard into a bright, ethereal noon, leaving residents terrified as their familiar world was swallowed by a light that felt holy, yet utterly fearsome. Predictably, the mainstream media and the scientific establishment scrambled to pacify the growing panic with technical jargon. Outlets like The Guardian and various meteorological agencies quickly issued statements, claiming these events were merely the result of a rare temperature inversion, combined with the refraction of ice crystals within the atmosphere. They argued that industrial noise from distant cities was being bounced off a warm layer of air, creating a resonance chamber effect, but their logic falls apart under the slightest scrutiny. A temperature inversion cannot carry a 120 decibel sound across 3 time zones simultaneously. No industrial machine on Earth produces a sound that mirrors the frequency of an ancient shofar. And no ice crystal refraction can generate a deep purple sky that lasts for 6 hours across an entire state. Science is desperately trying to fit a supernatural event into a natural box because the alternative is too terrifying for them to admit. They cannot explain why the sound was perfectly rhythmic, nor why the lights in the sky moved as if they possessed an independent will. When the laws of physics are being rewritten in real time, Atmospheric conditions is just a polite way of saying, we have no idea what is happening. We are witnessing the literal fulfillment of the Holy Scriptures. This is not a coincidence. It is a broadcast. In 1 Thessalonians 4:16, the Bible warns us, "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God." What the world heard this morning was not the wind, and it was not a weather anomaly. It was the herald of the King. The metallic, piercing clarity of those sounds mirrors the descriptions of the angelic trumpets that announce the arrival of the divine presence and the beginning of the final harvest. The purple skies and the gold lights are the signs in the sun, moon, and stars that Jesus spoke of, signs meant to shake the foundations of our secular comfort. The sky is no longer a ceiling. It has become a megaphone for the Almighty, announcing that the time of grace is narrowing and the hour of judgment is at hand. The fear you feel when you hear these recordings or see the footage of the Iowa sky is a righteous fear. It is a biological and spiritual recognition that your Creator is speaking. For decades, humanity has lived as if the heavens were empty and our actions had no eternal consequence. But today, the sky has become a mirror, reflecting our own fragility. These trumpet blasts are not just noise. They are a summons. They are a warning that the peace and safety of our modern world was always a thin veil. When the atmosphere begins to act with an intelligence that defies science, and when sounds from the spiritual realm bleed into our physical reality, it means the boundary between this life and the next is dissolving. The sky is telling us that the judge is standing at the door. The question is no longer whether these events are real. Millions have seen and heard them. The question is whether you are prepared to face the one who is blowing the trumpet. The safety of your home, the reliability of your technology, and the promises of your government are all vanishing under the weight of this celestial announcement. The heavens have spoken, and they are telling us that the end of our silence is only the beginning of His judgment. As the celestial horns fall silent and the sky settles into an unnatural, bruised hue, the very ground beneath our feet has begun to groan in a way that suggests the earth is no longer a dead mass of rock and soil, but a witness being forced to testify against our modern world. While we were looking up in terror, the foundations of our civilization began to pulse with a life of their own. In the desolate expanses of the Arizona desert, a team of researchers recently uncovered a discovery that has sent shockwaves through the archaeological and theological communities alike. They found an ancient stone altar, meticulously carved with Paleo-Hebrew inscriptions dating back to the 1st century. But the discovery wasn't just significant for its historical implications. It was the physical behavior of the stone that defied every known law of geology. Witnesses and specialists on site reported that the altar began to vibrate with a rhythmic, low-frequency hum that didn't match the chaotic shaking of an earthquake. Instead, the vibration was steady, organic, and hauntingly similar to the sound of a human heartbeat. This was not a tremor caused by shifting tectonic plates. It was a deliberate, pulsing beat emanating from the core of the ancient rock itself. The mystery deepened as the phenomenon spread from the desert to the most heavily developed urban centers in America. In the financial district of New York City and along the suburban corridors of California, the earth has begun to literally hemorrhage. Without a single drop of rain or a reported water main break, massive quantities of thick, dark mud and pressurized water have started erupting from beneath the asphalt. These are not mere leaks. They are violent bursts that have cracked open roadways and buckled the foundations of multi-million-dollar buildings. In some areas, the water doesn't just flow. It sprays upward with a force that suggests a massive, hidden pressure building deep within the crust of the earth. Citizens have stood in stunned silence as they watch the very streets they drive on every day explode from below, revealing a raw, churning power that has remained hidden for millennia. The ground is no longer holding us up. It is pushing back, as if the planet is trying to expel the structures we have built upon it. The scientific establishment has scrambled to provide a rational explanation for these events, but their attempts have been embarrassingly inadequate. According to a high-profile report featured in the New York Times, groups of elite geologists and seismologists were dispatched to these eruption sites equipped with the most advanced sensors available. They placed high-sensitivity seismographs directly onto the vibrating Arizona altar and the cracked streets of Manhattan, expecting to find evidence of volcanic activity or subterranean gas pockets. The results were chilling. The sensors remained flat. There was no seismic activity recorded. There were no tectonic shifts, no tectonic grinding, and no volcanic precursors detected in the atmosphere. The experts tentatively labeled the urban eruptions as excessive groundwater pressure. But they had no answer for where the water was coming from or why it was behaving with such concentrated violence. More importantly, they were completely silent regarding the Arizona altar. Science can explain a crack in the earth, but it cannot explain why a 2,000-year-old piece of solid granite is pulsing with a rhythmic heartbeat. There is no biological or mechanical reason for a stone to beat like a heart. And the total failure of our scientific instruments to detect a physical cause proves that we are dealing with a power that operates outside the boundaries of human physics. This is the living, breathing manifestation of the warning Jesus Christ gave us in Luke 19:40. When the religious leaders of his day tried to silence the praise of his followers, he declared, "I tell you, if these should hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out." We live in a generation that has gone to great lengths to silence the truth of God, to remove his name from our schools, and to bury his laws under a mountain of secular philosophy. But the Creator will not be silenced if humanity refuses to acknowledge the signs of the times. The very rocks will take up the task. The pulsing heartbeat of that ancient altar and the violent eruptions in our cities are the crying out of a creation that recognizes its master is near. The earth is reacting to the spiritual weight of our era. The stone is speaking because the people have become deaf. And the ground is bursting because it can no longer contain the magnitude of the divine pressure being exerted upon this world. The terror of this moment lies in the realization that our most basic assumption, that the ground is solid and reliable, is an illusion. We have spent centuries building skyscrapers, highways, and vast empires on the belief that the earth is a permanent, unchanging foundation. We trust the concrete beneath our tires and the basements beneath our homes. Yet we are now seeing that this stability was only granted to us by a thin margin of grace. When the ground itself begins to shift, breathe, beat and pulse with an organic rhythm, there is nowhere left to run. Every high-rise in New York and every cliffside home in California is suddenly revealed to be a house built on sand. The safety we have found in asphalt and steel is a lie we told ourselves to avoid thinking about the eternal. As the earth begins to heave and the ancient stones begin to beat like hearts, we are being forced to confront the reality that there is no such thing as solid ground in a world that is passing away. Our only true foundation is not found in the earth below, but in the word that spoke the earth into existence. The ground is shaking to remind you that you cannot stand on your own strength, and the rocks are crying out to tell you that the time for silence is over. As the heartbeat of the desert and the violent eruptions in our cities signal a fracture in the physical world, the vast and impenetrable oceans have begun to reveal secrets that were meant to remain buried until the end of time. For generations, humanity has treated the sea as a predictable resource, a boundary we could chart and a depth we could eventually conquer. But that illusion of mastery has vanished in a single morning. Along the coastlines of Florida, the very foundation of the Atlantic shelf has begun to give way. This was not a collapse triggered by a hurricane or a submarine earthquake detectable by our sensors. It was a silent, massive subsidence of the seabed. As the floor of the ocean buckled, it pushed the hidden inhabitants of the abyss into the light of day. Residents along the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic beaches awoke to a sight that looks more like a nightmare than a biological reality. Thousands of deep-sea entities, creatures that exist in the crushing pressures of the midnight zone where no light has ever penetrated, have washed ashore in perfect, unblemished condition. These are not the fish we know. They are pale, translucent nightmares with oversized, light-sensitive eyes and anatomy that seems to defy the laws of surface biology. Their presence on the sand is a grim message. The deep is no longer a sanctuary, and the barriers that kept the abyss separate from the world of men have been torn down. This disturbance is not limited to the salt waters of the coast. It has surged inland, affecting the freshwater arteries of the American heartland with a precision that is even more terrifying. In the quiet lakes and rivers of Illinois, a phenomenon has been recorded that has left veteran fishermen and biologists paralyzed with confusion. Tens of thousands of fish have been observed abandoning their natural swimming patterns to form massive, vertical columns that stretch from the murky bottom to the very surface of the water. They move not as a panicked school fleeing a predator, but as a single, coordinated unit, a living architecture of scales and fins. These columns of fish drift through the water with a haunting, military-like synchronization, maintaining their vertical integrity even as they navigate through currents. It is as if they are being summoned or organized by a frequency that human ears cannot hear, responding to a command to align themselves in a way that challenges every known law of aquatic behavior. They are no longer behaving like animals. They are behaving like a sign, a biological manifestation of a hidden order that has suddenly taken control of the natural world. In an attempt to maintain a sense of public order, the scientific community has rushed to provide sterile, naturalistic explanations for these horrific anomalies. National Geographic and several marine research institutes have published preliminary theories suggesting that these events are the result of rapid shifts in the Earth's magnetic field, or localized oxygen depletion zones caused by subterranean gas leaks. They argue that the fish are stacking vertically simply to reach oxygen-rich surface water, or that the deep-sea creatures were disoriented by a magnetic anomaly. However, these explanations are fundamentally flawed and collapse upon the simplest observation. If oxygen were the issue, the fish would be gasping at the surface in a chaotic struggle, not forming mathematically precise vertical structures that remain stable for hours. Furthermore, magnetic shifts do not explain why creatures built for the extreme pressure of the Mariana Trench are being found on a Florida beach without their bodies exploding from the pressure change. There is no biological algorithm in nature that directs thousands of different fish to form a vertical tower. Science is grasping at straws because it cannot admit that the rules of the ocean have been rewritten by a higher authority. They are trying to use the laws of the old world to explain the birth of a new, terrifying reality. What we are witnessing is the literal reopening of the windows of heaven and the fountains of the deep as described in the ancient accounts of Genesis 7:11. The Bible records a moment in history when all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, a catastrophic release of hidden waters and hidden forces that reshaped the entire planet. We are entering a cycle where the deep is once again breaking up. The sea is returning what it has hidden for ages, and the strange behavior of the water and its inhabitants is a signal that the great vessel of creation is being shaken. In biblical prophecy, the sea often represents the restless, chaotic nations of the world, but it also represents the literal depths of God's judgment. When the seabed collapses and the creatures of the dark are cast onto our shores, it is a sign that the hidden things are being brought to light. The sea is acting as a herald, informing us that the order we once relied upon has been dismantled, and that the great deep is no longer under human observation, but is reacting to a divine summons that we can no longer ignore. The psychological impact of these oceanic shifts has created a profound and justified sense of dread. The ocean has always been the cradle of life, the source from which all physical existence was thought to emerge. But now that cradle has become a graveyard and a source of alien-like terror. There is a primal fear in seeing the abyss invade our shores, a realization that we are completely powerless against a nature that has turned hostile. We have spent billions on submarines and underwater cables, thinking we own the deep. Yet in one morning, the ocean proved that we are merely tenants on a planet that is answering to its true owner. The vertical columns of fish and the pale monsters on our beaches are a warning that the boundary between the hidden and the revealed is gone. We are losing control of our most basic environment. When the very waters we drink and the oceans that sustain our climate begin to act as messengers of the supernatural, there is no safety left in the natural world. The sea is no longer a resource to be exploited. It has become a mirror of our own impending judgment, reflecting a world where the secrets of the deep are finally being laid bare before a terrified humanity. While the oceans are surrendering the nightmares of the abyss and the ground is pulsing with a terrifying new heartbeat, the very air we breathe has been transformed into a silent, crystalline executioner. We are no longer dealing with the predictable cycles of the seasons or the inconveniences of a typical winter. A lethal, anomalous Arctic air mass has descended upon the North American continent with a speed and ferocity that defies every meteorological model ever created. At this moment, 16 states have declared total states of emergency as temperatures have plummeted 60 to 80 degrees in a matter of minutes, not hours. This is an atmospheric collapse. In towns and cities across the Midwest and the Northeast, the moisture in the air is flash freezing into a microscopic fog of ice that shreds the lungs of anyone caught outside. But it is the scenes left in the wake of this cold that reveal its supernatural origin. Across the plains, animals have been found frozen solid in the middle of their natural movements. There are reports of deer standing perfectly upright in the snow, caught in mid-stride, their bodies turned into statues of ice before they could even register the drop in temperature. Birds have been found still clutching their branches, their tiny hearts stopped instantly, preserved in a state of permanent, frigid stasis. This is not the slow death of hypothermia. This is a localized suspension of biological life, as if the very concept of warmth was suddenly deleted from the environment. Even more disturbing than the temperature is the behavior of the snow itself. It is not falling in the soft, chaotic drifts we are accustomed to seeing. Instead, it is accumulating in impossible vertical formations along the walls of houses and the trunks of trees, defying the laws of gravity and wind. It builds upward like a growing crystal, forming intricate, jagged patterns that look less like natural precipitation and more like a deliberate, geometric language carved into the landscape. Witnesses have described the sound of this snow as it hits the ground, not a soft thud, but a metallic clatter. The texture of this white death is as hard and sharp as tempered steel. In rural communities, farmers are finding their livestock not just frozen, but physically mutilated by the snow itself. The razor-sharp crystals are so dense and abrasive that they have been recorded cutting through the thick hides and even the hooves of cattle as they tried to huddle for warmth. The atmosphere has been weaponized, and the substance falling from the sky is no longer water. It is a rain of glass that is grinding the world to a halt. In their desperate attempt to maintain a facade of control, Major news networks like CNN and agencies such as the National Weather Service are flooding the airwaves with terms like bomb cyclone and extreme polar vortex. They are using these scientific labels to mask their absolute bewilderment. However, their technical jargon cannot explain the physical anomalies being reported on the ground. A polar vortex is a movement of air. It does not explain why snow is stacking vertically against a flat wall in a windless environment. It does not explain how the molecular structure of snow has changed to reach a hardness level that can shear through bone and leather. No meteorologist has been able to provide a reason for the instant statue freezing of large mammals, which requires a heat extraction rate that is physically impossible under normal atmospheric conditions. The National Weather Service is tracking a storm, but they are ignoring the fact that the storm is behaving with a malicious, targeted intelligence. Science is providing us with the how of the wind speed, while completely failing to address the what of the substance that is currently burying our civilization. They are describing a weather event when they should be acknowledging a celestial intervention. The reality of this freezing wrath is found in the ancient warnings of the prophet Isaiah. In Isaiah 24:4-6, the scripture describes a time when the earth mourns and fades away, the world languishes and fades away. The inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. While we often associate burning with fire, the sensation of extreme, flash-freezing cold is identical to the searing pain of heat. And the result is the same: the total desolation of the land. The earth is mourning because it is under the weight of a divine decree. This Arctic surge is not a random shift in a jet stream. It is a manifestation of a world that has become spiritually cold and is now seeing that internal reality reflected in the physical realm. The inhabitants are being burned by a frost that no furnace can repel. This is a pressure of judgment, an atmospheric weight that is crushing life out of the landscape to remind humanity that we are not the masters of our climate. We are witnessing the earth itself languishing under the touch of its creator. As the very elements melt, or in this case, freeze, with a fervent heat of divine reckoning, the fear that is currently gripping millions is the realization that the home is no longer a sanctuary. For centuries, the modern man has believed that as long as he had four walls and a heating system, he could ignore the elements. But this white death has exposed that arrogance. When the temperature drops so low that the metal in your furnace becomes brittle and snaps, when the pipes in your walls explode with the force of a grenade, and when the snow buries your exits with a steel-hard crust, your home becomes a tomb. This cold is non-negotiable. It does not care about your wealth, your plans, or your technology. It is a silent, creeping predator that is knocking on every door, turning the ultimate symbol of human safety into a frigid cage. The darkness that accompanies these storms is not just a lack of light. It is a heavy, suffocating presence that tells you the grace of the sun has been withdrawn. We are being forced to realize that our survival was never guaranteed by our infrastructure, but was always a gift that we have taken for granted. Now, as the frost creeps across your window and the lights flicker out, you are left with the terrifying truth. The winter of the world is here, and there is nowhere left to hide from the breath of the Almighty. As the atmosphere turns into a crystalline weapon and the oceans surrender their deepest terrors, a more intimate and haunting phenomenon is taking place within the walls of our sanctuaries and beneath the sun-scorched earth of the American Southwest. This is no longer just a matter of weather or geology. It has become a direct confrontation with the objects of our faith and the buried records of our past. In a quiet parish in California, thousands of witnesses, including devout believers, hardened skeptics, and secular journalists, have stood in absolute silence as a statue of the Virgin Mary began to exhibit behavior that defies every physical law governing inanimate matter. This was not a report of a faint shadow or a trick of the light. Multiple high-definition recordings and eyewitness accounts confirmed that the statue's eyes, carved from solid material, moved with a fluid, human-like grace, scanning the crowd with a look of profound, agonizing sorrow. Then, as the local temperature dropped in accordance with the national crisis, the statue began to weep. The liquid was not water. Chemical analysis suggested a substance resembling human tears and blood, flowing from eyes that were supposed to be stone. The expression on the statue's face did not change through mechanical means, yet those present described an overwhelming aura of grief emanating from the figure, a maternal sorrow so heavy that it caused grown men to collapse to their knees in spontaneous confession. While this public display of divine grief paralyzed the West Coast, a discovery of even greater prophetic significance was being unearthed in a remote, arid region of the Southwest. During a routine geological survey triggered by the recent ground tremors, a hidden vault was discovered deep beneath a layer of ancient sediment. Inside this hermetically sealed chamber, researchers found the remains of a single human skeleton, positioned not in a burial pose, but in a protective crouch. The skeletal arms were wrapped tightly around a collection of clay jars containing perfectly preserved parchment scrolls. These were not the common records of a lost tribe, but a series of prophetic texts written in an ancient Hebrew script. What makes this find terrifying is the content of the scrolls. They do not speak in vague metaphors. They contain detailed, specific descriptions of the very events we are currently living through. They describe a sky that bellows like a trumpet, an ocean that reveals its monsters, and a winter that turns the air into glass. The scrolls even name the regions and the timing of these disasters with a precision that would be impossible for a document buried for nearly 2,000 years. The skeleton in the vault was not a victim of a cave-in. He was a guardian who died in a state of desperate prayer, holding onto a message that was never meant for his own generation, but for ours. The scientific community and professional debunkers have attempted to dismiss these events as a combination of mass hysteria and elaborate hoaxes. Skeptics pointed to the California statue and argued that optical illusions caused by flickering candles and capillary action in porous stone could explain the weeping. They claimed the Southwest Vault was a clever plant by religious extremists seeking to capitalize on the current global instability. However, these dismissals were shattered by a landmark report from the Associated Press, which granted access to independent laboratory results. Carbon-14 dating conducted by multiple universities confirmed that the scrolls and the skeletal remains date back to the 1st century. Furthermore, the ink used on the parchments contains mineral compositions found only in the Dead Sea region, proving they were not manufactured in the modern era. The optical illusion theory for the statue was also discarded when forensic cameras captured the eyes moving in direct response to individuals in the room, a feat that would require robotics far beyond what could be hidden in a solid plaster figure. There is no longer a rational, secular escape route. The evidence proves that these artifacts were prepared and activated by an intelligence that exists outside of our linear time, leaving the skeptics speechless in the face of a reality they can no longer explain away. This is the moment of unsealing that was foretold to the prophet Daniel. In Daniel 12:4, the scripture says, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words, and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." For centuries, these words were a mystery, a promise of a future revelation. But as we stand in the shadow of these global catastrophes, it is clear that the seal has been broken. The discovery of the scrolls in the desert is the literal manifestation of the sealed book being opened for the final generation. The increase in knowledge, our modern technology, and global communication has allowed us to witness these signs simultaneously. Yet, that same knowledge is powerless to stop the events the scrolls predict. The fact that these ancient texts are only emerging now, exactly when their descriptions match our reality, is proof that we have reached the time of the end. The seals are not just being lifted from books. They are being lifted from the very fabric of our world, revealing a divine timeline that has been running beneath the surface of human history since the beginning. The terror of these signs lies in what they communicate about our current standing before the Creator. In the language of faith, a weeping statue is not a sign of celebration. It is a sign of impending doom. Throughout history, these phenomena have been reported on the eve of great slaughters and the fall of empires. When the images of our faith begin to weep and move, it is a signal that the period of quiet intercession is coming to a close. A mother does not weep until the danger is certain and the time for warnings has passed. We are seeing the transition from the age of grace to the age of judgment. The sorrow in those stone eyes is a reflection of the divine grief over a world that has rejected its light, even as it is swallowed by the dark. The guardian in the vault died holding the truth so that we might see it when everything else fails. If the very symbols of mercy are now displaying agony, it means the door is closing. The justice of the Almighty is no longer a distant theological concept. It is a physical reality breaking into our world. We are being told that the time for debate is over, and the time for the great account has begun. The scrolls are open, the statue is weeping, and the world is being summoned to answer for its silence. As the spiritual seals are torn away, and the physical world collapses under the weight of divine intervention, the final theater of this global reckoning is manifesting in the corridors of power and the ancient, shadowed depths of our most iconic landscapes. While the common man struggles to survive the crystalline cold and the terrors of the abyss, the political architects of our world have entered a state of frantic, deceptive diplomacy. In recent hours, amidst the smoke of escalating conflicts in the Middle East, a region that has become the volatile epicenter of global tension, world leaders have emerged to deliver a unified message. From the podiums of the United Nations to the emergency broadcasts of major powers, a specific and haunting phrase is being repeated with calculated frequency: peace and security. They are promising a new era of global cooperation, a technological and political solution to the chaos that is currently dismantling our civilization. They speak of a great reset and a return to order, attempting to pacify a terrified populace with the assurance that human ingenuity and international law can still tether the world to stability. However, this rhetoric is a hollow shell, a desperate attempt to maintain authority over a world that no longer recognizes their laws. Their words are not a solution. They are a symptom of a much deeper, more ancient deception. While these leaders attempt to direct our gaze toward a false peace, the land itself continues to vomit forth truths that contradict their narrative of control. Deep within the vast, labyrinthine cave systems of the Grand Canyon, explorers and military recovery teams have encountered a horror that defies the very definition of humanity. Reports have leaked, corroborated by thermal imaging and classified transmissions, of the discovery of massive, semi-biological entities residing in deep, previously unmapped chambers. These are not fossils, but living anomalies, towering forms with elongated features and eyes that glow with a predatory, ancient intelligence. One specific account describes a gargantuan eye, a living organ embedded within the rock itself, blinking and watching the explorers with a gaze that felt heavy with judgment. These are the things that were supposed to be myths, the giants and the watchers of old, surfacing as the Earth's crust fractures. Their presence beneath the soil of America is a final, crushing blow to the secular worldview. No government can legislate against the return of the Nephilim, and no military can provide security against entities that have waited for millennia for this specific hour of awakening. The convergence of these events, the political cry for peace, and the emergence of ancient horrors is the exact fulfillment of the warning found in 1 Thessalonians 5:3, which declares, "For when they say, 'Peace and safety,' then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." We are currently living in that sudden destruction. Every sign we have explored, from the trumpet blasts in the sky to the heartbeat in the stone, from the monsters on the shore to the weeping of the statues, is a labor pain of the earth. These are not isolated accidents. They are a synchronized, escalating series of signals that the birth of a new age, the return of the great judge, is imminent. The political promise of peace and security is the final, fragile veil that is being pulled over the eyes of a dying world. It is the anesthetic given before the final operation. We must realize that all these signs, across every element of nature and every layer of human history, are converging on a single, inescapable point: the conclusion of the age of man and the beginning of the reign of the Almighty. You have reached a crossroads where the half-hearted explanations of science and the empty promises of politicians can no longer shield you from the truth. You have seen the evidence. You have heard the sky cry out and felt the ground pulse with life. Will you continue to cling to the crumbling ruins of a world that is being judged? Or will you open your eyes to the spiritual reality that is shaking the very foundation of your existence? Science has failed you. Your government has deceived you. Your technology is freezing in the dark. The only thing that remains is the state of your soul before the one who controls the storm and the deep. If this night were your final night, if the cold outside were to finally reach your door and the lights were to fade forever, where would your spirit go? In a world where even the stones are crying out, you cannot afford to remain silent. The time for curiosity has passed. The time for a radical, humble turning toward the light of the Creator is all that remains. We must stand together in this hour, not in the strength of our own hands, but in the humility of our prayers. Lord, we ask that you open our eyes to see the truth of the season we are in. Forgive us for our long years of indifference, for our arrogance in thinking we could master your creation, and for our silence in the face of your warnings. We ask that you lead us through this storm, that you protect our families from the cold and our souls from the darkness. We surrender our need for control and place our trust in your eternal plan. If you are moved by the weight of these events, I invite you to join this community of watchmen. Leave your prayer in the comments below, simply stating, "May God have mercy and protect us," as a testimony of your faith. Subscribe to this channel right now to stay informed on the signs that are continuing to manifest. For the window of time is closing, and the truth must be shared before the silence returns. May the grace and protection of the Lord be with you all as we watch for the next sign on the horizon. Don't wait until the next disaster strikes. Make your peace now, for the judge is at the door.